Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Like to welcome to our speakers, Dr. Aznan Hassan, Encik Megat Hizaini Hassan, and also Encik Shahrizan Sulaiman, and all the rest that actually just joined us via virtual. I think we've got about 30. And also like to thanks to CERTS and also all the organizers and also sponsors for inviting us for this very unique and very powered seminars that we used to do it physically, now we do virtually. And without further ado, let me introduce our key speaker today. And for the first one is Dr. Aznan, is our Sifu in Islamic banking and Sharia. Let me reading first on the biography of Dr. Aznan for those who I think yet to get to know him, but then I know he was being famous globally. Even I think influencer pun kalah lah Dr. Aznan, ya. Dr. Aznan is an associate professor in Sharia at Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, IIUM. He was the founding president Association of Sharia Advisors in Islamic Finance Asas. He's also the Deputy Chairman, Sharia Advisory Council Security Commission, and Deputy Chairman, Sharia Advisory Committee, EPF. He's also member Sharia Council, IUFI, IFM in Bahrain, and High Sharia Committee, Sharia Authority for Central Bank of UAE. He also served as a member of Board of Directors of Maybank Islamic Berhad. Before that, he served independent non-executive director of Ulama Malaysia Takaful. He was a member of Sharia Advisory Council of Negara for 2 terms, 2006-2008, and also 2010 to 2013. Prior to joining to Sharia Advisory Committee of Negara Malaysia, he was the chairman Sharia Advisory Board SCR Takaful MEA Bahrain and Southeast Asia, Malaysia, where he was instrumental in setting up of SCR Takaful model for Sharia point of view. Currently, he's the chairman Sharia Committee for Maybank Islamic Berhad, Bank Pengguna Malaysia Berhad, Etika Gender Takaful, and many more. And also, he also actually sitting at my Chartered Global in Dubai. For info, Dr. Aznan has concluded and also conducted and published more than 50 researches and presented more than 100 presentations. Dr. Aznan received his first degree in Sharia from University of Al-Azhar. Then he successfully completed his master degree in Sharia from Cairo University with Mustad Jidan, and his thesis was recommended for publication, and then he obtained his PhD from University of Wales at United Kingdom. Our second speaker is Encik Megat Hizaini Hassan. Okay. Encik Megat joined the law firm Lee, Hishammuddin, Allen and Gledhill in January 2011 as a partner heading the Islamic Finance Practice Team and part of the Financial Service Practice Group. Megat holds a Bachelor of Law degree, first class honor from International Islamic University of Malaysia, as well as a Master of Law degree from the University of Cambridge, UK, and Harvard Law School, US. Megat was the Cambridge Commonwealth Class Scholars at Cambridge, International Islamic University Scholar at Harvard, and a Royal Dutch Shell Scholar at IIUM. Encik Megat was called to Malaysian Bar in 1991. Encik Megat is well versed in matters relating to conventional and Islamic banking and finance, as well as corporate legal and drug development. Encik Megat has advised local and international clients on issues pertaining to the legal and reg framework for conventional and Islamic financial investment, such as in Malaysia and abroad. Encik Megat has also been recognized as one of leading lawyers in his area of practice through publications such as Legal 500, Chambers Asia and Chambers Global, the International Financial Law Review Guide to the World Leading Islamic Finance Lawyers and Expert Guides, as well as Islamic Finance New Leading Lawyers Directory. Our final speakers is my good friend, Encik Shahrizan Sulaiman. Is currently a Deputy CEO Maybank Islamic Berhad and Head Group Islamic International. Encik Shahrizan holds MBA specializing in Islamic Finance from the International Islamic University of Malaysia and Bachelor degree in Business Finance and Accounting from Indiana University, USA. For info, Encik Shahrizan joined Maybank Group in November 2019 as the Director of Islamic Initiative under the LEAD 30 project In August 2010, Cik Shahrizan was appointed at the head of rates trading, looking after the banks and trading investment book under the global market Islamic. His portfolio expanded when he was appointed the head of global market Islamic in December 2010, managing an asset more than 50 billion. Cik Shahrizan has over 20 years of experience, of which he spent 12 years with Citibank Berhad, where he started as a management associate and left the institution as the vice president, investor sales desk, client coverage unit within the Treasury Department, looking after non-banking financial institution. Prior to joining Maybank Group, Shahrizan was the Assistant General Manager of Market Risk and Risk Analytics of Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad from 2005 and 2009. Alhamdulillah, that's our key speaker today. Inshallah, today we try to contribute and add value for our seminar today that we call Update on Outstanding Sukuk Deal. Without further ado, let's go to Dr. Aznan. Dr. Aznan, with the emerging market alongside with the participant investors, demand, the sukuk issuance are highly recognized by market nowadays. Due to this demand, how are the structure used prior to sukuk issuance could accommodate such growth in Syariah perspective? Tafadhal, Dr. Aznan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, our brother, Dr. Suhaimi, CEO of Standard Chartered Saadiq Malaysia, the respective panelists, and also the participants. First of all, thank you for organizer for inviting me to give my thought on the issues regarding the updates on sukuk, which I believe that has been the pioneer or one of the important ingredients for Islamic finance. I mean, even since the very beginning of the first issuance of sukuk back in 1994 by Shell that time. I mean, from there, we looked how the sukuk has evolved a lot. Initially, we were quite confused what this sukuk is, whether it is a debt-based instrument under fixed income, whether it is an instrument that should stand on its own. So therefore, initially, when we look at the way sukuk was structured, it was structured based on debt instruments. Later, it was evolved to become a non-debt instrument, realizing the problem of non-tradability of the debt-based instrument in many parts of the world, and we need to treat the sukuk that has driven the market to move to other structures which are non-debt-based. The Malaysian Islamic capital market has moved further than that. In our regulation, in Malaysian regulation, sukuk is not defined as debt anymore. It will be defined based on what we call the contract use. If the contract use is musyarakah, if the contract use is mudarabah, if the contract use is wakalah, hence the nature of that particular sukuk is not debt, as we understand is fixed income. This does not deny the fact that the feeling of the market and how people deal with it, they still classify it under debt-based instrument. Even the rating try its best to move away from the debt-based rating, but yet we can see that the debt-based rating is still prevalent when it comes to the sukuk rating for that matter. This is the thing that we need to improve from time to time. However, if you remember, if we remember, 2008 was a bomb drop, I believe, for the sukuk issuance where Sheikh Taki issued, I mean, the very controversial pronouncement, followed by IOF later on sukuk regarding musyarakah, mudarabah, and wakalah, on how the purchase undertaking effector, on how the liquidity facility, and so forth and so on. Hence, from there, you see a drop in the usages of equity-based instrument. So people focus more on, if you look from that particular time, starting from 2008, if we see the data provided by, for example, IFM, IFSB, Thomson Reuters, and some other data provider, you can see that people move back to debt-based instrument and also Ijara-based instrument, because people want to start trading. In many parts of the world, people started to trade already in terms of sukuk. But in Middle East that time, the culture of trading was not there yet. The culture of trading was not there yet, for two main reasons. The first one is that because the issuance were not that many. That's the first one. Second one, in that particular time, the rating of the sukuk was not so prevalent in Middle East. So many of the sukuk were not rated, so people don't trade when it comes to sukuk for that matter. So we see a lot of non-tradability of the sukuk for that matter. However, of late, hello?
Yes, Doctor. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Of late, you see the trend in the Middle East. I mean, in Malaysia, the trading was there for so long already. We use the trade. Of course, the Malaysian market is a unique market where based on certain resolution of the SAC of SC together with Bank Negara allowing for trading of debt-based instrument based on buy and dine concept. That one is a unique market. But other than Malaysia market for that matter, other part of the world, if debt-based instrument, then you cannot trade. That has led to another structure of sukuk, which is the most prevalent one. I believe these days, whoever working in Islamic banking or Islamic investment banking, for example, for that matter, they want to start sukuk. If they don't understand how to do sukuk wakala or mixed asset sukuk, they are out of the market. Because everywhere in the world, the one that is well practiced or well used is actually what we call wakala sukuk or mixed asset sukuk. Okay, now that is the structure that we have nowadays. This structure come about, or why people are looking into this particular structure, simply for two main reasons. The first one is that because of the tradability that it provides, compared to what we call to commodity murabaha sukuk, albeit it's easy for us to structure commodity murabaha sukuk or murabaha sukuk for that matter. However, the non-tradability make it less preferred by the industry. But another one is ijara sukuk. If we go on ijara sukuk, for example, ijara sukuk is good, you can trade, but it requires a lot of asset. So wakala structure and hybrid sukuk come handy in terms of try to mitigate between the two things. The first one, it allows for tradability, mean that if we issue sukuk based on wakala or mixed asset, then you can trade based on the whatever standard that you follow. The second one is that even though it is tradable, it requires less asset or tangible asset to be used compared to the ijara asset. Hence, if you look at the structure that we have now, Brother Suhaimi and the participants, the wakala sukuk or hybrid sukuk has more than 80%. The latest by FM shows that it's more than 80% of the sukuk issued in the market are actually mixed asset sukuk or wakala sukuk, which is the same, depending on what country that you are looking into. Of course, the underlying also are very, very varied. The combination of debt and ijara, combination of debt and musyarakah, combination of debt and mudarabah, combination of debt and khadamat, and a lot of other combination. But the main theme is still mixed asset and wakala based sukuk. So in my opinion, moving forward, we will see a lot more of this wakala based and mixed asset sukuk. What we need to do to ensure that the market can use this particular sukuk in this particular structure in the way acceptable. In IOF standard, there is no, for the time being, there is no discussion directly on mixed asset sukuk and wakala sukuk. Yes, IOF in the mix of reviewing their sukuk standard. So what we need to do now, we need to put a clear-cut parameters on how for us to use this particular sukuk to ensure that while we are putting sukuk to the market, this sukuk that we put are tradable and allow the issuer to use less asset for potential reissuance of sukuk later on. That is the structure that we have now in terms of what are the update on the sukuk structure. So lawyers, investment bankers, Sharia scholars, if they are in this particular area now, knowledge about sukuk, which is mixed asset sukuk and wakala based sukuks, is very, very important for them to be able to structure good structures of sukuk in the market. Brother Suhaimi, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Aznan, for great sharing. You shared the journey starting 1994 until now, how the involvement of the Syariah structure, especially on the Wakalah structure and hybrid structure, will continue to contribute a part of the world and locally, how important this suku to continue evolve in order to meet the demand and also demand not only for the local, but then also to the public as well. And to Encik Megat, I can see the involvement on the Syariah structure, and we can see the involvement also on the rule and regulation, regulation as well as Syariah standard, and it also impact on the legal documentations and in order to make it sukuk better and also so-called tradable in Malaysia and also internationally. Can you share your thought on this, Encik Megat, related to the recent Syariah standard and also related to the law? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Encik Suhaimi, and welcome everyone. Good morning. At least for those in Malaysia. I also wish to thank the organizer, CERT, for inviting me to participate in this session today. And also I'm privileged to be involved with the session together with Encik Suhaimi, Dr. Aznan, and Encik Shahrizan in relation to the topic. Maybe just going back to what was, I think what you have raised, Encik Suhaimi, relating to evolution of the rules, regulations, and how that would impact the sukuk market. Certainly, if you look at it from the perspective of rules and regulations, certainly it would have an impact on sukuk issuance and offering. I think first of all, the fact that essentially any sukuk to be issued in any particular jurisdiction would need to conform and comply with the relevant legal requirements for the issuance and on the offering of that particular instrument in that particular country. So in Malaysia, for example, you have the issuance of sukuk governed by the relevant sukuk guidelines and the regulator being the Securities Commission. Similarly, in other jurisdictions, we find that the capital market regulators would determine whether or not a particular sukuk may be issued and offered in the relevant jurisdiction, and on what basis it can be offered. And typically in most jurisdictions, I think the approach taken is that sukuk is treated as the equivalent of conventional bonds, or the functional equivalent of conventional bonds. Obviously, that is how it started in many jurisdictions, and that is how it is for many countries. In Malaysia, that was also how it started off, where sukuk is actually looked at as a type of instrument that is treated in the same way as a conventional bond. In Malaysia, it used to be part of under the debentures regime under the Capital Market Services Act. But what you find that in certain countries, such as Malaysia, for example, there's been an evolution in terms of the treatment of sukuk. Essentially, from I think in the past 15 years or so, sukuk is no longer treated as the functional equivalent of conventional bonds from the regulatory perspective, but rather the regulators, at least in Malaysia in particular, recognizes that sukuk is an instrument that evidences ownership of certain assets and rights relating to certain assets. Although in other countries that may not be apparent, but in Malaysia, I think that actually marked a significant shift in the way that sukuk is to be treated. It's not just the conventional bond equivalent, but it's something else. And in that respect, you find that although the legal regime has allowed for the recognition of sukuk to be something else than just a pure bond, the way that the market treats it is still as essential as a type of conventional bond. You find that although in Malaysia you have many structures, not just that base structure, such as based on the old BBA structure or the Murabah structure, you find structures such as Mudarabah, Musyarakah, even Wakalah, Injarah being used in the market in Malaysia and also in many countries. The way that these particular structures are used and the way the instruments are treated by the relevant parties would still be in many ways the way that a particular party would treat a conventional bond. And maybe that's something that probably needs to change. In certain countries such as Malaysia, you find that the regulators are amenable to treating sukuk as something else much more than just a conventional bond. But in other countries, I think the way that sukuk are treated is basically it's a type of conventional bond. It functions the same as conventional bond, except that in terms of the underlying structure, it is different in order to comply with Sharia. I think that is where probably things need to change in order for sukuk to play a much more important role in the market. In some countries, there's the recognition of the different nature of sukuk. In other countries, you find that there is insufficient recognition or treatment of sukuk as being something more than just a conventional bond. But having said that, I think going back to the question of legal requirements, certainly, yes, it's important to have appropriate regulatory treatment for sukuk to ensure that essentially standards are maintained and consistency is ensured in respect of sukuk structures that are used in the market. And essentially the role of AUFI in setting out various Sharia standards and the role of certain regulators in setting certain substantive Sharia rules for sukuk have indeed developed and helped develop the market. And you find that, I suppose, as a testament to the efforts taken by AUFI and relevant standard setting bodies, you find that despite the differences in terms of rules and regulation, in terms of the requirements for sukuk issuance and offering in various countries, you find that regardless of the type or the particular country, whether it's Malaysia or Middle East or Europe, for example, you find that certain sukuk structures are seen to be used regardless of jurisdiction. For example, sukuk wakalah, as mentioned by Dr. Aznan, and sukuk wajara are used in not just in Malaysia, not just in Middle East, but also the countries. And that is a testament to the success that bodies such as AUFI, the regulators, and also to a large extent the Sharia advisors as well, in establishing certain standards for sukuk structures that withstood the differences or variance in regulatory approach or requirements across various jurisdictions. So is there still room for improvement? I think certainly yes. I think in terms of how sukuk should be treated as much more than a mere functional equivalent of conventional bond. But that's something that probably we will see, I think, more in the future. At this point in time, in most countries, it's still treated as just the conventional, the equivalent of a conventional bond. And maybe that's something that may need to change for the better. Okay, we'll be back to you, Shahrizan.
Thank you, Megat, for your thought and also feedback about the Sharia standard, including rules and also law applicable for our sukuk globally. As to Encik Shah, as you know, based on the Bloomberg data provided, as of today, the total global outstanding sukuk managed to reach close to about USD 780 billion, which is year on year and also quarter to quarter increase about 3%. So looking at this, Encik Shah, and looking at this, even though during pandemic, it's not actually impact on the sukuk global issuance. Can you share how this progress and how the evolution on the sukuk issuance will be in future later? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Suhaimi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all our to my respected panelists, Dr. Aznan, Cik Megat, and our beloved and distinguished guests actually attending and participating in today's event. And also, a note of thanks to our organizers as well, Sir, for having us here today, for having me personally here today, participating in this prestigious event. I'm very honored and very flattered to be part of the discussion and conversation. Going back to the question, Brother Suhaimi, I think there are many variables or factors that we probably need to look at and take into account. But on top of my mind, if I can maybe highlight probably 4 major factors, and they're not in any way exhaustive. And if I may sort of highlight them, not in any particular order of importance. One is the global economy and economic conditions that we are actually facing. As you pointed out, I think we are now in the in midst of the pandemic, and hopefully we are transitioning towards an endemic phase. And we've seen the economic conditions have actually resulted in an impact into the global sukuk market, whether whether good or bad, both good or bad, right? But if you look at the numbers, as you rightly pointed out, the last year was actually a record year. for SUKUK issuance. It's even better than 2019 pre-pandemic. And this year, based on the run rate, I think we're probably going to see another record year. First half of the year, issuance has already been almost close to 100 billion. So we're looking at another record year for SUKUK issuances this year. Alhamdulillah. So again, I think it's really about going to my number 2 point, the demand and supply, right? There is, if you look at both sides, buy and sell, there are specific areas of focus or concentration for both sides actually. For the sell side, for the issuers, I think they are taking advantage of the current low rate regime, benchmark rate regimes, to tap into the capital markets, and in our case, the SUKUK market, to take advantage of the low funding costs, right? And also to fund a lot of the stimulus packages that we see in the market today, right? As established by the relevant governments and sovereigns and whatnot. So they need to fund the stimulus packages. They need to finance the economy as a whole, and they are tapping the capital markets, including the SUKUK market, in a big way. On the investor side, there are common themes that they are looking at, right? Of course, one of the the contemporary theme and what is actually being talked about quite a lot these days is actually sustainability. If you look at it from investors' standpoint, there are a lot of emphasis on investing and looking at assets which are sustainable / ESG theme or based. So we have seen a surge in demand as well on such assets, and true enough as well, on the sell side as well, on the issuer side, we are seeing a lot more issuers embracing sustainability, funding not just the E but the S as well, or rather addressing the E and the S as well. Trying to tackle the climate change, issues, as well as addressing the social requirements, social impact initiatives, undertaking or embarking on social impact initiatives, including financial inclusion and community empowerment. I think we're seeing a lot of that, and even closer to home, I think we're seeing quite a number of sovereigns, including Indonesia and the government of Malaysia as well, issuing SUKUK which have sustainability tranches in that. Indonesia issued, the ROI sovereign bond, and within that program, there is actually a green tranche, right? I think this year that is about $750 million out of the 3 billion amount that they've issued. GOM, our government of Malaysia as well, has issued about 800 million worth of sustainability tranche out of the 1.3 billion SUKUK that we have actually issued. And then not just these sovereigns, if you look at in the corporate space as well, there are a number of corporate issuers who are actually riding on this what do you call this phenomenon, or rather this is new awareness, if I may, right? We've seen Samdabi property tapping into the market, Chagamas, and of course not to forget our own government SUKUK Prihatin, which was actually issued to finance the COVID-19 initiatives, and also to address financial inclusiveness issues within the economy as well. Number 3, I think there must be or rather concerted efforts from both private and public sector, including the government and regulators. I think we have actually seen a lot of the regulators, including the governments, pushing, for SUKUK issuances. Again, one reason is also is actually to tap, is also to fund the stimulus packages, as I mentioned earlier, and also to take advantage of the funding costs, which is probably an all-time low right now. And given the what we are seeing in the market today, I think this scenario of low rates will probably persist well into FY 2022. But notwithstanding the Fed tapering, the inflation outlook, and all that. The last point is the Sharia interpretation. I think we've also talked about it. Dr. Aznan has talked about it a bit. Megat has touched on this as well. To me, harmonization of Sharia standard is one, but I think we should not allow that to impede or be a stumbling block to making progress in the Sukuk market. It will be a problem if you let it be a problem. So I think in the recent years there's a lot more convergence as opposed to a divergence, and then we've seen a lot more agility among the players to adopt and adapt to the situation. We're seeing a lot more innovation, right, in terms of structures. Not to mention the acceptance of different jurisdictions to some of the common structures, right? Probably initially, I think Dr. Aznan mentioned about the issue they had back in 2008 on the equity-based contracts, Mudarabah and Musyarakah. It has evolved. Then we took it upon ourselves to evolve. Now we are seeing a lot more issuance based on the structures like such as ijara, wakala, and all that. So even to a large extent murabaha. So there are options, and we should not confine ourselves to those that are problematic, but we should look at others that can be more widely accepted. So there are many other factors, but I would think that these 4 factors could be the some of the major contributors to determine how the Sukuk market will continue to evolve and progress moving forward in the future. Thanks, Brother Suhaimi.
Thank you very much, Aisha, on the outlook and foresight view, and sharing some of the progress, especially on the ESG related to green Sukuk. And also to Dr. Aznan, and to echo from discussion just now with Megat and also Aisha related to differences of standard. So from your view, what are the major challenges faced in Sukuk establishment considering the different option of standard reference, IFI versus our local Sharia advisory bodies, from Sharia and also from such a perspective? Any thought, Dr. Aznan, on that? Thank you.
Dr. Aznan, unmute first the mic.
The problem is that we don't have a clear-cut standard for that. In fact, the IOF Sharia standard on Sukuk is very broad and is open for a lot of interpretation. This a lot of interpretation can be good and can be bad. The good thing is that it will open for a lot of innovation, a lot of working. I mean, we can do a lot of maneuver here and there. But the bad thing about that is that it may lead to uncertainty. This we can see in some of the latest issuance in the market. I mean, I don't want to name any of the Sukuk that have very controversial, has some controversy in terms of whether it is allowed or not, whether we can participate or not. Those who involved in Middle Eastern issuance will see that we have some of the issuance which were have a lot of debatable issues that lead some of the market cannot subscribe. For example, some of the issuance that has been in the market has been considered or was considered by the UAE Central Bank to be non-conforming to IOF Sharia standard for that. Hence, some of the Sukuk, either you cannot subscribe, or when you subscribe, you get questioned and you get to dispose the Sukuk and so forth and so on. So this uncertainty to me is a major. I really hope that this is only temporary. It has to be temporary. At the end of the day, we need to work very fast to ensure that we have a clear-cut, what I call a more detailed guideline on what can be done and what cannot be done in the Sukuk issuance based on Sharia contract that we use. IOF is working on that. We at the Central Bank of UAE, we are nearly completing our own internal what we call assessment to be published to the UAE market on some guidelines in terms of sukuk issuance for the UAE market to subscribe. What I can see now is that people consider a lot of UAE market simply because of the demand side, because of the demand coming a lot from the UAE market. Hence, any issuance of sukuk will consider largely what are allowed and what are not allowed in the UAE for that matter. It's something that I believe that we should, we here mean the IOF should work faster in putting the standard to the market, not only relevant to a particular jurisdiction, but also relevant to the whole market as a whole. This, I think, the main challenge that we have now. Allowing only a particular jurisdiction to decide because of they have the advantage of higher demand whatsoever. This is not a good practice in my opinion. Hence, the standard to be published or to be rolled out by the IOF is very important for us to look into in terms of what are allowed and what are not allowed in the issuance of sukuk. That's the first one. Second one is that the understanding of the Sharia scholars. I mean, we are talking about harmonization, we are talking about appreciation, we are talking about standardization. Some of these buzzwords are good, but at the end of the day, when we come to the market wants certainty. I repeat, the market wants certainty. The issuer, especially the potential issuers, especially, they don't want to look at whatever theory, whatever what we call a concept that we want to debate, we want to do whatever. The first thing when they want to, based on my experience in Malaysia and also Middle East, I mean, advising various jurisdiction, UK, I mean, South Africa and UAE, what we call GCC and also Malaysia. The issuer simply want one thing. If I use this particular structure, following the standard that you give me, can this sukuk be widely acceptable or not? Full stop. That's what they want. I mean, whatever that you want to discuss later, standardization, harmonization, appreciation, whatever that you want to say, you discuss among yourself. But as far as an issuer for this particular sukuk, what I want to know is that if the sukuk I issue based on your recommendation and your suggestion, will the sukuk be accepted by all? Because as far as the issuer is concerned, they want the widest potential of investors base. As simple as that. Okay, so I think one thing that we need to do now is that if you look at the GCC's issuance, the sukuk vis-a-vis bond, you can see some incline in terms of sukuk issuance and some increase in terms of the bond issuance. Nobody has any has put clear-cut research and definitive reason why this happened, but it is largely believed, I repeat again, it is largely believed that the reason in the downside of the sukuk issuance and the upside of bond issuance, one of the main reasons perhaps because of the certain uncertainty in terms of what are acceptable, what are not acceptable, that happen in certain jurisdictions. IOF standard, I mean, lately Bahrain has also decided to incorporate IOF standard in their law. Means that as a legal requirement for you to subscribe to the IOF standard. The UAE Central Market, UAE Central Bank also has issued the same thing. So some other jurisdictions are also looking into applying that particular resolution for the purpose of standardization. In my opinion, what we need to do now is that to put a clear-cut guideline, what can be acceptable, what cannot be acceptable for public to embrace, and the potential issuers, the ranger, the investment bankers, they are in the know what can be done and what cannot be done when it comes to the issuance of the sukuk. I think this is very important for us to look into. Otherwise, we have a problem again and again in terms of what can be done, what cannot be done. I think that are the major challenge that we have. We don't have a clear-cut guideline for the time being. Very broad, and that very broad, the problem when we follow that very broad ideas, when it comes to certain jurisdiction, or this cannot be done, this is not acceptable, so you, the investment banks, the banks cannot help in selling this particular sukuk, that will lead to uncertainty in the market, and the potential issuers may decide not to proceed with sukuk until and unless we are firm in terms of what are allowed and what are not allowed in terms of the sukuk issue. I think we have to speed up that thing. That is the most challenging part when it comes to the Sharia differences of opinion vis-a-vis the sukuk standard in the market for the time being.
Thank you, Dr. Aznan, for your thought and sharing about the IFE standard versus our local Sharia advisory perception on our standard versus theirs. So to go back to Encik Megat, looking at what I have shared with Dr. Aznan just now, from the documentation perspective, any thought how the different can harmonize and how we make it a standard practice across continent and other regions? Over to you, Encik Megat.
Okay, thank you, Cik Suhaimi. I think maybe purely from the documentation perspective, I think the difference in terms of standards, the issue of harmonization does not really occur at that level in terms of documentation. And the reason for that is essentially because when it comes to doing the documentation, you will normally have the Sharia advisor or particular Sharia advisor appointed for the relevant issuance or offering. So any issues or any perspective of the Sharia relating to the sukuk structure and documentation, at least at the point of the inception of the sukuk, I think that is addressed by seeking the views of the appointed Sharia advisor. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of documentation, then certainly yes, there is a range of Sharia views that can be taken. But what normally happens in practice is that you already have a Sharia advisor appointed, and you would rely on the Sharia advisor to provide the direction and guidance in terms of the particular Sharia standard that will apply. So it will be the Sharia advisor that will make the call and will make the determination on, based on the varying standards, Sharia standards that's applicable, what would apply to that particular sukuk issuance or offering. So to that extent, from the perspective of the documentation itself, in many ways it is addressed by the fact that the issue is dealt with by the appointed Sharia advisor for the sukuk issuance or offering. But going back to the issue of standards and whether it will be on the issue of harmonization of standards, certainly I think that would be ideal to have across the board, across the various jurisdictions, as between the various standard setting bodies, harmonization or uniformity in terms of Sharia standards applicable. But having said that, I think that the issue about standards have been raised many times before in the past, but we have yet to come to a stage whereby all the different standard setting bodies have agreed to a particular standard or various all points relating to a particular standard to be adopted. But having said that, it's not something that should not be achieved or that we try to be achieved, because if standards are harmonized, in terms of Sharia standards are harmonized or uniform to some extent, it will be certainly helpful for the market in terms of providing clarity, in terms of providing consistency in terms of application. But I gather one challenge in terms of harmonization standard would be the fact that on the one hand, you have to get everyone to agree on the major points. On the other hand, it should also be inclusive and all-embracing, so that essentially those standards that are harmonized can be incorporated and adopted in the relevant countries or the relevant jurisdiction. So it is, I suppose, more of a balancing act that have to be performed, and there needs to be more consultation between the various bodies concerned. And you're dealing with either regulators and standard setting bodies, so they may have different perspective and an approach to be taken that will be unique to their jurisdiction, but may not be suitable for parties to agree on the adoption of a particular standard. I suppose that purely from the point of view of a sukuk issuance or offering, what will be important will be for that particular issuance or offering done in a particular jurisdiction, there's clarity in terms of how a Sharia view is applied to that particular sukuk issuance or offering, and there is consistency ensuring that the sukuk that is issued or offered would meet the relevant Sharia requirements that apply, and those requirements are considered to be applied or ensured to be applied or complied with before such sukuk are issued or offered in the market. Otherwise, there'll be an issue where I think at the point of issuance, you may the regulator may agree to a particular standard, but later if the regulator were to change its mind, then you may have the problems. I think that was identified by Abdul Aznan, where SUKUK is issued and then the regulator may raise certain points about the particular appropriateness of standards or of Sharia that apply to that particular SUKUK. So there needs to be consistency and clarity in terms of what standards to apply, and also compliance of the relevant standard before the SUKUK is issued and offered. And once issued and offered, I think the regulator's stand in respect of the Sharia position should remain, unless of course there has been some substantial change in the SUKUK that had essentially changed either the points upon which it was agreed upon at the time of inception, where in that event where it has changed from the point that it was from the original point position, then obviously the regulator can take action. But on the basis that the SUKUK was approved, standards have been met and complied with, that is determined at the point of issuance and offering, and there's been no change in the standard or approach taken throughout the lifetime of the SUKUK. So if there's consistency in terms of standard, I think that would help as well. Give it back to you, Shahrizan.
Thank you, Encik Megat. Encik Shah, as the arranger and also as at the bank, continue progress and helping our client and issuer, and with the difference, do you have any thought how marketing and promoting the SUKUK at global level? Do you have any thought how we from the bank perspective?
Thank you, Brother Suhaimi. So I guess it comes back to this issue of standardizing and harmonizing the Sharia interpretations. Honestly, I think this is we've discussed this for as long as I can recall. It is a legacy issue. I think as practitioners, I think we have moved past this, if I may. We've moved forward. In practical terms, I think we will not apply a structure that will not fit or be accepted in certain market, right, or in certain jurisdiction. For instance, sorry. For instance,
if possible, can the others audience mute your line, please? Thank you. Over to you, Cik Shah.
Sorry, thank you for that. My apologies. As I was saying, I think we will not apply a contract that will not fit or accepted by certain jurisdictional market. I think as much as we can, we will obviously go for those globally accepted ones, and there are structures which are globally accepted, widely accepted, right? For example, if I can just use an example, if we were to market SUKUK Murabaha to GCC in the Middle East, for example, right? It will probably be less received, less favored, unless of course the SUKUK is short term, then it is short, right? We had an example in the case of International Finance Facility for Immunization, FFIM SUKUK. So for that particular SUKUK issuance, I think chances are the investors will probably hold until maturity and not be able to trade it, right? But again, as I was saying, we should look at structures which are more widely accepted, and they are, and one would probably be the wakalah structure. It has been actually commonly applied, and there are others as well, Ijara, etc. So question is, while harmonization of these standards are actually ideal, but I don't think it's going to be an impediment, a major impediment as far as practitioners are concerned, because we have actually we have options and we have actually gone past this. I think to another point, the regulatory framework or the Sharia framework, as well as the legal framework, must be also in harmony, i.e. talking to each other. It's not just within the Sharia standards, but having all these three frameworks to be able to talk to each other. And I think this is also quite key, I think, as what Cik Megat has actually said and pointed out as well. In Malaysia, I think we're actually quite, we're quite, what do you call this, the privileged in the sense that, we have bodies such as the Sharia Advisory Council of the of Bank Negara and SC, Securities Commission. So now this bodies are actually a central body that sets the standards, and the participants and players would have to follow the guidelines issued by the central bodies. So there's no issue of having a structure which would not be accepted by another institution if you are actually participating or operating in the same ecosystem, in the same jurisdiction. Maybe a last point is that from a rating agency perspective, right? The different interpretations of Sharia, will also have probably some impact on the SUKUK holders' recourse on the SUKUK itself, right? So, for example, if a corporate is rated AAA, and the SUKUK, of course, has an intention to actually achieve a AAA rating, the rating agency, of course, will assess to ensure that the SUKUK holders will indeed have recourse to the AAA rated issuer. So that is probably one perspective that we probably need to take to be cognizant of as well. So I'll take a pause here and back to you, Brother Suhaimi.
Thank you, Encik Shah, for the particular answers related to indifferent between fee standard and also others continent standard. So go back to you, Encik Shah. You mentioned that one of the and to everyone here, as you know, one of the key drivers that for us to the new stream that we're looking forward now is more toward value-based implementation. If I can make it short, is the purpose of this BBI is focused on protect the planet, protect people, and also protect the bank's profit. I feel that one of the key ingredients for this BBI is about social finance and also to push the ESG requirement. As Shah mentioned just now, and many issuers and either Malaysia or globally pushing ESG and including SUKUK. And as you're aware, based on Malaysian budget 2021, the government has broadened the existing income tax exemption for SRI up to year 2025. Perhaps Encik Shah can give a thought whether there is enough for the bank in terms of the this incentive, and what's your view with this journey that everyone is embraced today to protect our planet and also our people, and on top of that also our profit. Yeah, go back to you, Encik Shah.
Thank you, Suhaimi. Well, I guess the incentive, especially those related to the SRI, are actually have actually been in the market for a while now, I think.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, when we look at just purely from an incentive standpoint, right? Did it actually move the market? Is it purely because of the incentives? I think an honest view is that it may not be just solely because of the incentive, although incentives are something that, of course, as practitioners, we welcome that in order for us to sort of get past the door, and to even to some extent to have a level playing field with, among the bond markets, especially because we are still competing with the bond markets, right, and the other capital markets. But I think it's the more important is the demand. I think you are seeing greater awareness and increased demand for ESG sustainability related themes, and I think this has also created a surge in terms of the issuances as well. So while incentives are important, I think we also need to ensure that issuers, investors alike, they are on board when it comes to ESG and even BBI. I think it goes beyond just the E, and I think especially in this part of the world where I think there are a lot more urgency to address the S, right, the social impact, or rather the social repercussions of especially in this era of the pandemic. So and we've seen that SUKUK being issued to fund and to finance these initiatives, right? For example, beyond the E, we have seen issuance such as some property, in the interest of promoting affordable housing, Chagamas as well, we have our own SME bank, even Bank Pembangunan, issuing sustainability / green SUKUK tranches in order to promote as well as further develop the SME space, the entrepreneur, the micro and nano enterprises, entrepreneurs, to ensure that they are at least able to sustain, their businesses during this very challenging times, and even grow their businesses, moving into, as we transition into an endemic phase. So we've seen such examples, and we hope that this momentum will carry on. We hope that we will be able to ride on this momentum moving forward. Another thing is, I think when we look at ESG, I think there's also the process of making sure that it's actually more seamless, right? I think incentives is good, but the process itself, the documentations and all that, should also be seamless. Should be able to support and facilitate the issuances of more ESG/sustainability related issuances. That's my 2 cents, Brother Suhaimi.
Thank you, Brother Shah. To Dr. Aznan, any thought or would like to share any challenges, especially whenever we raise a SUKUK issuance under green ESG framework versus normal corporate SUKUK issuance? Dr. Aznan, any feedback on that, Dr. Aznan? And what's your thought for side view for future on the green SUKUK? Dr. Aznan, you are on mute. Yeah, sorry.
When we talk about ESG, SRI, green SUKUK, from Sharia point of view, we welcome that a lot. In fact, this is not something that we, it's not something against Sharia. It is embedded in Sharia. A lot of verses from Quran, Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that emphasize on all those matters, be it environment, be it social, be it governance, protecting of everything. That is the maqasid of Sharia, the purpose of the Sharia. So from Sharia point of view, we welcome this initiative a lot. In fact, we should be the pioneer instead of leaving it to the conventional finance or conventional bond to issue bond for that matter. But what can we do? The thing has happened, but the way forward is how for us to drive more in terms of issuance of SUKUK, considering all those purposes that we have mentioned just now. From Sharia point of view, there is not much. I'm talking from based on my experience. The first green SUKUK in Malaysia, Tadaw SUKUK, I was a Sharia advisor for that particular SUKUK. So, and after that, we continue with a lot more other SUKUK. The latest one internationally is what we call is the IDB SUKUK, which is used for sustainable as well. I was part of the team that approved that particular structure as well. So based on my experience, from Sharia point of view, the Sharia structure doesn't have any different challenge from the challenges that we have already. Means that there is no additional challenge for us to put the structure in that manner. The challenge is when it comes to utilization of the proceeds to comply with that requirement. This is more on a particular standard point of view. When you talk about green bond, green SUKUK framework, when we talk about SRI framework, there are differences from here and there, whether it is Asian bond or based on the United Nations. There are some dissimilarity here and there. So for us to what we call to comply with that particular requirement of utilization is one thing that need to be thought of. One area that we think we need to look more, which is actually ESG in nature, but has not been seen well in Islamic finance, is the use of wakaf. The only SUKUK wakaf is issued in Singapore long time ago, remember what year, long time ago, the Musyarakah is SUKUK. Perhaps we should regenerate back this particular important instrument of Islamic finance, which is the wakaf and zakat. We come that again on what Shah mentioned about the social finance for that matter. These are the most strong, among the strongest instrument for promoting Islamic social finance. We tend to neglect this. We look at zakat as a pure, what I call worshipping act. Ibadat, we have to pay zakat, otherwise we got punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We look at it from that particular angle, where in actual fact, zakat is not an worshipping act alone. It is instrument of economic development. Wakaf, for example, in the previous years of Islam, the previous years, glorious years of Islam, for example, Wakaf is considered third sector finance, for example, beside the normal government base and also private base. In fact, Wakaf has been a very important one. How for us to incorporate this into our issuance of Sukuk for that matter? We said difficult, no, it has been issued in Singapore, for example, for that matter. How for us to look more into having this particular consideration in terms of Sukuk when it comes to ESG for that? So that is in a nutshell what my point of view. And I believe that this ESG, SRI, Green Sukuk and all those issuances, we have to look at it very seriously. In fact, I believe moving forward, all issuance of Sukuk shall consider this particular thing, because this is the nature of Islam itself. We are not talking about something additional. Conventional, they are talking about adding some value or adding some more flavor to that particular finance. But in Islamic, there is nothing new. This is embedded in Islamic finance. It is that we would neglect this particular thing long time ago. Now this time has come for us to embrace and do it in a more, what I call, inclusive manner when it comes to any, not only issue of Sukuk, but all instruments of Islamic finance that we want to do in this particular situation. Thank you, Shami.
Thank you, Doctor, for your thought and your foresight, view, and inspiration. Definitely, I agree. You know, for the bank, like myself and also like Shah, we continue to push the social finance. You know, one of the idea about the wakaf and zakat. Yes, I think many banks in Malaysia pushing hard, and even they try to embed in part of the Sukuk. So we got about only close to 7 to 8 minutes. So if I go back to the quiz, if I go back to the quiz, question and answer that posted in the group, you got 2. One is for me actually, talking about one of my product, Komting Berbahar, using plastic resin from Busa. Inshallah, we look into that. As you know, we got a lot of mechanism and commodity being used. And why Standard Chartered use plastic resin? Because more sustainable, and in terms of pricing, they're not move volatile compared to other commodity. Inshallah, brother Muhammad will into that, yeah, on your feedback related to our journey for sustainable. And number 2, our brother Hamid mentioned to Dr. Aznan related to IUFI standard. What's the impact of it? That we discuss very large on the Sharia structures, on the legal perspective, and also on the acceptance, and also how the other market react on that. And I'm sure that is actually answer Encik Ahmad questionnaire. So I would like to open to the floor. If there is any Q&A, we got about 80 people here. All right, I got one question from Cik Noor. Let me open this. Can the organizer reading the question, please?
Sure. The question is, how can we accelerate the upscaling of zakat and wakaf in Sukuk issuance domestically and abroad?
Probably, Dr. Aznan, you can take out on that. How we can accelerate the upscaling zakat and wakaf? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of effort, concerted effort needed from various parties. I mean, in many parts of the world, zakat, when it comes to zakat and wakaf, it's not like the normal finance where it comes to the normal law. It have the elements of Islamic law there, especially in Malaysia, for example. Hence, we have to, I think what we important is not about what we call we work on our own. We cannot work in silo. Working together with respective authorities in wakaf, for example, Yayasan Wakaf, in Malaysia, for example, Yayasan Wakaf, wakaf authorities in states, and a bigger picture of government must be there. I mean, in our latest budget, Suhaimi, I think we are aware of how government look into the wakaf to be used for instrument to accelerate the progress of the country, elevating of the poor, and so forth and so on. So I believe that is the area where we should work at. Me, myself, I'm in Islamic finance. I'm also advisor for Yayasan Wakaf and also advisor for some state. I understand the dynamic of that particular thing. But like it or not, we have to work together. Otherwise, it cannot work. I mean, I think this word has been said so many times already. Working together, and we get tired already of not working together. Not tired of working together, not tired of not working together. So the time has come, I believe, that while we want to do Islamic finance, talking to regulators in the language that people understand what we want to do. Okay, that is very important. Sometimes what we put to the people is that in our language that they don't understand. I mean, we have to understand that our language is different from language of some other regulators. So that is the most important thing. I can see a lot of potential here. I've seen the benefit of certain states in Malaysia, for example. We can see a lot of collaboration can be done for the SUKUK, for the REITs, for the unit trust. Oh, a lot of things can be done for that matter. And of late, with the issuance of new guideline by capital market on the use of wakaf and everything, we see some of the unit trust wakaf. That unit trust wakaf we need to enhance further. For the time being, the unit trust wakaf, the wakaf is only on the profit of unit trust. We want to go further than that. Profit unit wakaf on unit trust in terms of the unit wakaf on the profit, hybrid, temporary wakaf, what we call wakaf muakkad. Then we go further to wakaf rates, we go to issuance of sukuk, we go to the fund in general, a lot of other things that we can work. I see the balance sheet, in my opinion, if we work well together with them, we talk to them the language that they understand, a lot of things that can be accomplished by putting together Islamic finance and wakaf and zakat fund.
Sure. Thank you, Doctor. There's one question from the floor related to the hybrid structure of wakalah. If I can read the question, appreciate the panel thought the existing wakalah hybrid structure require only 51% of underlying assets other than murabahah. Even this is quite hard to be met by non-sovereign or large corporate. With S59, it further require for underlying 51% to be consist of asset that can withstand the new tangibility movement with effect future sukuk issuance. Yeah, probably Megat or Shah would like to take this first.
I think this one is more relating to the Sharia standards issued by OFI. So I think maybe Dr. Aznan will be a better person to deal with it.
Sure. Doctor, your comment please, if any.
I think one most important thing is that how for us to be innovative in the structure. Okay. Don't rely every time when we talk about tangible sukuk, don't look at the fixed asset only. Don't look at the building, don't look at the tangible asset the way conventionally, not conventional manner, the way we commonly thought about the tangible asset. Because definition of tangible asset in Sharia is wider than legal. For example, the latest Malaysian issuance sukuk, we use the what we call the ticketing, the train ticketing as the underlying. So that can be done as well. So be innovative in defining what is tangible asset. Don't look at the building alone for that matter. So you can see a lot of variety, a lot of innovation that you can put to ensure that this particular 51-49% of requirement of tangible and intangible would not impede the development of sukuk, inshallah.
Thank you, Doctor, for the question, for the answers. And actually, we got one suggestion, to use the fintech blockchain to accelerate wakaf and zakat to needy. I think time for that. Inshallah, we'll look into that, your proposal. With that, Dr. Aznan, Encik Shah, and also Encik Megat, thank you for your valuable time and your energy to share with us today. And the rest, I really hope that you get add value from our today discussion. Inshallah, what our motivation, our inspiration today, really to accelerate journey of the sukuk, not only on the normal sukuk, but then focus on ESG. And one of the suggestions by Doctor is looking for wakaf and zakat structure. Inshallah, everyone, thank you very much for your time. See you again. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.